We are just a couple of hours away from the final approach and docking of Dragon to the International Space Station after a picture-perfect liftoff from the Kennedy Space Center yesterday. Overall, this will be Dragon's 46th visit to the International Space Station and its 14th human spaceflight mission to the orbiting lab, including the Demo 2 test flight, the 10 NASA Commercial Crew Program rotation flights, and 3 Axiom Space private astronaut missions.
Dragon SpaceX on the big loop, mid-course maneuver complete. Trajectory has converged on waypoint 0.
And that is exactly what we were hoping to hear.
Dragon, copy.
Exactly what we were hoping to hear there, that mid-course correction burn, nudging Dragon back onto the proper trajectory to intercept waypoint 0, which is that 400 meters below the International Space Station. Now, going a little bit ahead in our process, when we're about ready to dock with the International Space Station, one of the final things we're going to hear is what's called CHOP, Crew Hands Off Point, a little less than 30 seconds prior to docking. That's the point where all aborts would have to be manual, but as we actually heard a few minutes ago, right after that approach initiation burn, the crew does have manual options available to them, but right now just monitoring Dragon as it cruises in autonomously for that docking a little bit later tonight.
And you can see that live view and a beautiful view at that of Dragon Endurance as it approaches the International Space Station. Now, these views are being captured by cameras on the International Space Station, which is Dragon's target for today. And the International Space Station and Dragon are currently flying about 260 statute miles over the Indian Ocean. And so after CHOP, and as we make that initial capture and the grand arrival when Crew-10 arrives at the space station, Dragon will fly in and make contact with those international docking adapters, giving us what we call soft capture. And the soft capture ring then retracts until sensors indicate it's time for 12 hooks, 2 sets of 6, to drive in place to give us a hard capture and firmly secure Dragon to its new home on the space station. Then the station crew, namely NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore, will manually pressurize the vestibule or the...
And Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground has pulled go for approach 0 and enabled the maneuver. Expected maneuver start time is approximately 0321 Zulu. Reminder that Dragon will nominally continue its approach through waypoint 1 towards waypoint 2 without stopping.
Dragon copies and go for approach 0.
Dragon's rendezvous and docking to the International Space Station is a fully automated process. However, Hague does have an ability to execute commands if necessary, but really only there for monitoring. So that C2V2 power cycling allows him to have the view from Dragon itself as it moves up towards the docking axis, which you're seeing now on your screen from the external cameras aboard the International Space Station. Hague monitoring Dragon's arrival, receiving data including range and range rate, making sure that Dragon is moving at the expected velocity, speed, position. Everything's positioned on board the International Space Station for docking. Again, the station itself at the docking attitude. Now again, the station teams here in the International Space Station flight control room polling to make sure that Dragon itself can proceed past waypoint 1 towards waypoint 2, waypoint 2 being just 20 meters in front of the International Space Station's docking port. This will be inside the keep out sphere. It is Nick Hague monitoring the operations from the International Space Station. Now, once it makes its way in to dock with the space station, it'll be NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore that is tasked with the responsibility of opening up the hatches and preparing the station to welcome the crew aboard Endurance. This includes opening up several hatches, including the Node 2 hatch and the APAS hatch, both of which are closed for the docking operations and cannot be opened until the docking is complete. He'll start venting air to make sure that the air is circulating properly through the pressurized mating adapter, and there's no pockets of carbon dioxide, just a safety procedure. When he's going to inspect the hatch, he'll be wearing goggles and gloves for safety measures. We'll cover all of that post-docking, but that'll be Butch Wilmore's responsibility. We'll also be getting camera views from inside the station. These were set up by NASA astronaut Don Pettit. The crew waking up and making sure on an early day aboard the International Space Station, much earlier than their typical day. In fact, their crew wake period was just after midnight Greenwich Mean Time, which is the time that they operate aboard the International Space Station. They were up and making sure that everything was prepared for Crew-10's arrival today. Crew-10 really just a transport mission to get to the International Space Station. Once there, they join Expedition 72 for at least a time. Don Pettit, NASA astronaut Don Pettit, will be returning aboard a Soyuz. Once that Soyuz undocks, crew on board the International Space Station officially begins Expedition 73, continuing the great science and technology demonstrations that are necessary in low Earth orbit to prepare for future human missions to deep space, including the Moon and to Mars. Camera views from inside Dragon Endurance showing displays that show some of the trajectory that is necessary to converge with the docking axis. This is waypoint 1. Now, when you see those displays, you'll see the trajectory curve out, the spacecraft itself calculating breakout maneuvers that are necessary as it makes its way along the planned set of procedures and approach maneuvers. Waypoint 1, immediately in front of the docking axis, once that is executed, the Dragon will fire its Draco thrusters to maneuver inside. Endurance less than 300 meters from the International Space Station, being illuminated by an orbital sunset right now. The views you see of Earth and of Dragon will start to get a little darker as we enter into an orbital sunset and orbital nighttime. Dragon, now brightened by the sun, will start to dim, and you'll start to see the docking lights as well as the navigation lights. Docking light will be white at the center of the spacecraft, and you'll see green and red lights on the forward bulkhead, green indicating the starboard position, red indicating the port position. The International Space Station cameras sometimes view from an upside-down position, as you can see from this view, as the Earth is on the top left of your screen. So the port and starboard navigation light positions will be reversed, but it's because the camera is sort of upside down from the position of Earth. You'll notice some of the views change throughout our coverage here. The feeds coming from Dragon, you can see illuminating the International Space Station. Those feeds provided by ground
SpaceX
stations.
On the Big Loop, approach 1 and soft capture ring extension will begin shortly. Dragon will continue its approach to waypoint 2.
SpaceX, Dragon, copy all.
And that relayed from the SpaceX core in Hawthorne, California, confirmed by the crew aboard Endurance. We are proceeding inside the keep-out sphere. You are seeing the docking light begin to blink at the center of Dragon Endurance. Features of Dragon becoming a little bit more apparent. The nose cone fully open, exposing the docking ring and the forward bulk of the Dracos. You did hear that Dragon will extend the soft docking ring mechanism. This allows for a cushioned contact as Dragon makes its way toward the International Docking Adapter. Docking comes in several phases, which includes contact and a soft capture, which is initiated by the docking ring. That docking ring is retracted to pull Dragon in closer to the International Space Station. and then begin a sequence to hard dock Dragon to the International Space Station. There are 12 hooks that are driven to really latch Dragon to the International Space Station. They're deployed in 2 sets of 6. And those will be confirmed by the crew. Once all of the hooks are driven, there is also an umbilical that extends and connects to an interface on the International Space Station side to provide power and data transfer between the 2 vehicles. Dragon right now operating on battery power and solar power that's generated from the trunk. Once Dragon attaches to the International Space Station, it'll be receiving power from the International Space Station through the duration of its stay aboard.
And there you're seeing a great view on your screen of the Dragon Endurance spacecraft as it makes its final approach to the International Space Station. The teams in Mission Control Houston and the SpaceX mission control teams behind us are, of course, doing some final go, no-go polls for docking. It's one of the final checkpoints between those teams to make sure everyone is good to proceed and to dock. We did hear that there will likely be a brief hold at waypoint 2. And again, that waypoint 2 is just 20 meters away from the International Space Station, so very close at that point. So they will hold briefly, and then from there, we will have our final approach and docking. We will have an initial soft capture, and then from there, they will begin to deploy those hooks, 2 sets of 6 for a total of 12 hooks to get that hard capture.
So this is a view from the Dragon Endurance carrying the Crew-10 crew. The forward docking port there is in the center of your screen, sort of being illuminated every few seconds by that light from Dragon. And what I love about this is you can see the Crew-9 Dragon directly above that docking port. And of course, Crew-9 going to be coming home after a brief handover period with the Crew-10 crew. And then inside of Dragon Endurance here, you have Commander Ann McLean on the left-hand side of your screen, pilot Nicole Ayers on the right. Next to Nicole is Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peskov, and on Ann's left is JAXA, or Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Onishi. Ann and Takuya are returning to the International Space Station for their second long-duration missions, and Nicole and Kirill are on their first missions to space.
So it's getting pretty real for the 4 crew members that make up Crew-10. Right now, they are just under 25 meters away from the International Space Station, so just outside of that waypoint 2, which is that point at which Dragon will hold for a few minutes.
On the big loop, you see we're approaching waypoint 2. Crew visors are closed.
Copy. Crew-10 visors are closed.
We did just hear that confirmation that the crew is approaching waypoint 2, so they see that on those screens in front of them. They see the distance, and they're able to monitor that approach as well.
And this is great because you can see Dragon's Draco thrusters firing here. You've got the red and the green navigation lights as well as the white one, but all those little flashes and pulses that you're seeing around the vehicle are the thrusters, keeping that alignment as we continue to approach waypoint 2, 20 meters from the ISS, where again, we are expecting to hold for a few minutes up. And you can see we're really getting close, considering now we're really illuminating that forward docking port with Dragon.
And so Dragon is actually at that waypoint 2 mark now, just around 20 meters away. So we will have that hold briefly. And recently, the team in Mission Control Houston did conduct their final go, no-go poll as well for docking.
SpaceX on the big loop. Dragon is holding at waypoint 2 for Dragon eye assessment.
You hear that confirmation.
Dragon, copy.
And you hear that confirmation that Dragon is holding. Now you're on the left-hand side of your screen as you're looking from the ISS's camera out at Dragon. Even though we've said Dragon is holding, you're still going to see some of those thruster pulses, because holding in space is not like just stopping your car that holds the same position.
And Dragon SpaceX on the big loop. Ground is bold to go, and we'll be enabling approach shortly. Confirm crew readiness for final approach.
SpaceX Dragon, Crew-10 is ready for final approach.
Station Houston, on the big loop, Dragon is on final approach and is go for docking. Monitor per steps 5 and 6 in 1.102 Dragon approach and retreat monitoring.
Station copy.
And that was the call from the International Space Station Flight Control Room to the crew on the ISS. Again, just everyone confirming, making sure everyone's on the same page, as Dragon is now very close to docking with the International Space Station here today.
And so Dragon is now just 17 meters away from the International Space Station and continuing to close in on its target. Coming up here shortly, we will likely hear that call out for CHOP, which stands for Crew Hands Off Point. That typically takes place less than 30 seconds before docking. So as soon as you hear that, you know that that docking will take place very soon after. And then at that point, when we hear the CHOP call out, any aborts will have to be done automatically by Dragon. And so also on the International Space Station, we have NASA astronaut Nick Hague monitoring this final approach. And then once Dragon is docked, NASA astronaut Butch Wilmore will walk through those hatch preparation and opening steps to welcome the crew on board. And Dragon is now less than 14 meters away from the International Space Station and continuing that final approach.
These very delicate series of maneuvers now. Dragon approaching very, very slowly relative to the International Space Station. Again, we talked earlier that launch is all about accelerating the vehicles to orbital velocity, and even though both Dragon and the ISS are traveling at about 17,500 miles per hour or 27,500 kilometers per hour, they are moving very, very slow, like 1/10 of a meter per second in relation to each other right now.
Dragon now at about 10 meters away from the International Space Station. We're standing by for that call out for CHOP here shortly.
SpaceX Dragon, 10 meters.
Copy, 10.
And again, you're looking at the forward docking port of the International Space Station, which is mounted to the Harmony or Node 2 module of the space station. The Crew-9 Dragon, which has been there since September, is also attached to a docking port on this module, and that Dragon is actually just off the top of your screen there as Crew-10's Dragon comes in for docking in just a few moments. And I love these views again. You've got the Dragon, you've got the ISS staring at Dragon on the left-hand side of your screen, and you've got Dragon looking at its docking port on the ISS on the right.
And Dragon is now less than 7 meters away from the International Space Station as it continues to make that final approach. Traveling with a range rate of less than 0.082, which, as you mentioned earlier, it continues to get slower and slower as we make this final approach.
It's at 5 meters.
Copy, 5 meters.
So the next call we should hear is CHOP, or that crew hands-off period, followed moments later by docking.
That typically comes at about 2 meters away from the International Space Station. Right now, we're less than 4 meters away. Less than 3 meters away.
It's at 2 meters. Please hands off.
Copy, hands off.
There is the CHOP call.
Standing by for initial contact of Dragon to the International Space Station.
Dragon contact and soft capture complete.
And there you heard Dragon has successfully docked to the International Space Station. We have contact and soft capture confirmed. Soft capture meaning that the initial soft capture ring around Dragon has physically connected with the International Docking Adapter. And this is just the first part of the overall docking sequence, Anna.
And so we did have that contact confirmed at 9:04 p.m. Pacific, 11:04 p.m. Central, while both Dragon and the International Space Station were flying 260 stat sheet miles.
Capture ring retraction in progress.
flying 260 statute miles over the Atlantic Ocean. And we did just hear confirmation that that soft capture ring is now beginning to retract. So they're beginning those steps to firmly attach Dragon to the International Space Station so that we can have what is known as a hard capture.
But it seems like we do have the first Crew-10 Onishi, the first Crew-10 astronaut through the hatch, followed by Peskov. Nicole Ayers, the first of the Fly's newest class of astronauts to enter, and last commander of Crew-10, Anne McLean.
SpaceX Crew-10, welcome aboard the ISS.
Well, hey, everybody down there on Earth.
You're not hot on the mic. I know. Is the receiver?
Oh, yeah, we're on.
Okay, got it, got it. Okay.
All right,
They changed at the last minute.
Got it.
Thought I lost my touch there for a sec. Hey, Crew-10 has had a great journey up here, about 28 hours to get back up to the space station, and I cannot tell you the immense joy of our crew when we looked out the window and we saw the space station for the first time. Returning for a couple of people, very first time for a couple of people. And let me tell you, that is such an amazing journey. You can hardly even put it into words. The ride up on the Falcon 9, orbiting the Earth for the last couple of days, it's been absolutely incredible, and it is something that none of us could do by ourselves. As we've said before, you cannot be great without the greatness of others, and I tell you, the greatness of the ground control teams have really shined through in the last few days getting us up here safely. Thank you very, very much.
Hey, from the bottom of my heart, thanks to our families, friends, and our colleagues from all the partners, SpaceX, NASA, CSA, ESA, Roscosmos, and JAXA for preparing us and making it possible for us to get here. And we are so excited to now be officially part of the Expedition 72. Thank you guys. And I want to say a couple of words in Japanese from here. 日本の皆さん応援ありがとうございました。元気にここまで ISS まで帰ってくることができました。明日からまた、一生懸命、希望でのサイエンス等を含めていろんなタスクを頑張っていきたいと思います。ぜひ応援よろしくお願いします。
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot one more time to SpaceX and NASA for this wonderful ride. That was really fun. And thanks to all the world's aerospace industry, which works to make the dreams to come true and to take us further and further. That's really wonderful. Thanks to everyone working there. И спасибо, конечно же, отдельно это Роскосмосу и Центру подготовки космонавтов за знания и опыт, которые привели меня сюда. Будем работать славно, работать дружно во имя, во благо всего человечества. Передаю микрофон. Потерялся.
I'd like to just say again, thank you to SpaceX for the awesome ride up here. As a rookie, that was one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I can't wait to get to work up here. So, so excited for the 4 pilots and us that just got to get to space together, and now we're 4 astronauts together. So, thank you to all of our friends and families, and thank you to all of the instructors and all of the ground teams who got us here. Can't wait to get started.
And Houston, thank you for tuning in this early morning. It was a wonderful day. Great to see our friends arrive. So thank you so much.
Thanks to all participants. Station, we're now resuming operational audio comm.